Hey, this is Spider Jones, and you are listening to the Sheriff Podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to an exclusive episode of The Sheriff. Guys, today I have a gentleman that I really admire. Now, I admire this guy's confidence, his pride, but most importantly, I admire the man's voice. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we all like to follow sports. In order to truly enjoy the true sports experience, we must watch it on TV, listen on the radio, or watch it live. My guest tonight makes the actual broadcast come to life, ladies and gentlemen. He can literally bring the games to life. He started PA announcing in 1999. He has over 1,400 games in 12 sports, ladies and gentlemen. He is the current host of my former junior team, the Kitchener Rangers. And ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I'm bringing him in. Mr. Sean Furfaro, how are you doing this evening, my friend?
Sheriff, I am so glad to be here. I'm doing great. It's fantastic, and I'm looking forward to our chat.
Well, awesome, man. I mean, Sean, as you could tell, as a veteran, I'm a little bit nervous, man. I got a veteran on my panel. I'm trying to observe you, listen to you. I want to take any tips that I possibly can. But first and foremost, buddy, I want myself and my listeners to really understand the passion that you have for this thing that we call announcing. Now, I have something interesting to say. I was reading your website, brother. And I read this thing that was so interesting. I've never actually, it's so simple, but so interesting. And I'm going to be quick with this. Let my voice be your voice. I am an announcer, which admittedly is a broad description of what I do. In essence, if you need someone to talk into a microphone and engage an audience, I'm the one you're looking for. Now, it goes on, but man, oh man, is that like inspiring to me. I want to know how this all started, brother. I want to go to Guelph, Ontario, and talk about your upbringings. I want you to tell me about your family and the beginnings of your life.
Well, let me tell you this, Sean. It all started in Guelph, Ontario. I was a young kid, and I was at St. James High School, and I wouldn't say I was necessarily the class clown, but I was somewhat of the entertainer. You know, I found that balance between being able to entertain my teammates without our classmates without pissing off my teachers, right? And I got along as well with the teachers as I did with the classmates. Where I realized I kind of had an interest in media was when I was 9 years old, and I hadn't actually done any sort of announcing. I was always a good public speaker. I was in the school plays when I was in grade 2, 3, 4, 5. I did speeches all the way through. I never had a problem with public speaking. It came very naturally for me. I started my own newspaper when I was 9 years old in 1982, a one-page newspaper on my street that I sold for $0.25. I did all these little things. Really? And then as I was in university, I started, okay, let's back it up, into St. James again. Yes. I try to balance the class clown fun guy, but not all the teachers loved it. And one of my teachers, his name was Bob Sharp, Hall of Fame basketball player actually for the University of Guelph, played in the Olympics for Team Canada. Mr. Sharp at the time, Mr. Sharp told me in grade 8, I had verbal diarrhea. Told me that I just wouldn't shut up in class. And I often say that was kind of the beginning stage where I realized what I kind of needed to do. And it was always in the background. When, Sean, you know this, right? This podcast is taken off. What do? You bet on yourself. You do what you're best at, right? What am I best at? You can see in the first couple minutes, I don't shut up. All I do is talk. So how do I make talking my work? It took a long time because I did a few things on the side, but I had an opportunity one time where I told Mr. Sharp at a Hall of Fame induction ceremony I was doing when he was there, I made him stand up in front of 800 people. And I said, hey, you told me I had verbal diarrhea when I was 13. Look, I finally got people to pay me to talk. So that was kind of the genesis of it, where I knew that I had to do something with speaking.
Now, I appreciate that. So thanks for sharing that. Now, Sean, here's the thing. I'm listening to you, right? And these things are coming up in my mind, and I'm thinking like, when kids go through school and they're a Sean Furfaro, where they're the most outgoing speaker in their class, they speak well, everyone can understand them, they don't mind going in front of a crowd and talking. That's a gift, and a lot of kids get shunned for that.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I for sure. And I had to power through that, and I had to, I was the nerd for a while. And it's not like I was bullied or picked on or beat up, but you deal with what you deal with in school in the 80s, right? I'm doing a speech at school about a pro wrestling event I went to at Maple Leaf Gardens, and I threw all my passion into telling everyone how great this match between the Hart Foundation and the British Bulldogs was, and down to every little detail. And it was a hit, but people were like, "Man, what a geek!" Just talking up on stage talking about wrestling. But I was in my glory. I loved it. So, yeah, it's not easy when you're 12, 10, but it gets easier. And so, to any kids out there that kind of, maybe the teacher calls you a chatty Cathy, or maybe it's like, "Hey, Steven, you have verbal diarrhea. You know what? Stick with it. If you can talk and you feel confident in talking, be comfortable talking."
Yes, exactly. Now, Sean, as a guy that is a fan of every sport, and as a guy that is very close in age to you, you're not going to get off that easily.
Yeah, that's fine.
With
Yeah.
that wrestling story. I want to know the results to the Hart Foundation against the British Bulldogs. So what was it, a tag team?
It was a
The Hart
tag team.
Foundation was against Bulldog and who?
Hart Foundation was Bret the Hitman Hart and Jim the Anvil Neidhart, Canadian legend, taking on the British Bulldogs, who were Davey Boy Smith and Dynamite Kid. So behind the scenes, these guys were all brothers-in-law. I didn't know that as a 12-year-old at the time. But we used to go to Maple Leaf Gardens all the time. My very first time I ever went, I saw Andre the Giant fight in a steel cage. We saw Hulk Hogan. We saw Randy Savage. It was great. But that match, I still remember. The Hart Foundation won by disqualification.
Wow. Man, you said Andre the Giant in the cage?
Yeah. Andre the Giant against King Kong Bundy in a cage.
Come on.
In 1986. It was between WrestleMania 1 and 2. First time I'd ever gone to live wrestling at Maple Leaf Gardens. Mind-blowing.
Wow, man. And how old were you there, Sean? Like, I know we're pretty close in age. I was born in 82.
Yeah, I'm a 73.
Okay, right on. So we're only 9 years apart.
Yeah, I look really good for my age.
You look younger than me, man.
I do. I'm not younger than you, but I don't look
awesome.
48. I'm 48 years old, and I'm pretty proud that, I look at least 46. You know?
Like, for the listeners out there, guys, I know you're listening on Spotify, but you got to check out the YouTube channel for this one, man. You got to see how young this gentleman looks, man. It's incredible. But dude, like, and I'm being serious, but going back to Guelph though, like, what I'm curious of is, was there anyone or anything that gave you motivation to get interested in that type of thing? Like, was there anyone that you looked up to that did it, or anything like that along those lines?
Absolutely. There were two guys, and I'll tell you this. So in the mid-'80s, what was huge at the time? It was AM radio, top 40 radio. You want to listen to Duran Duran and Culture Club and Bon Jovi, you're just tuning into AM radio. And here the station was 570 Chime, which has now gone on to become a news station, which actually covers the Kitchener Rangers games. But I was listening all the time, and I started phoning in, calling the DJs, requesting songs, starting to get to know the DJs. I was this guy, Kid Sean, that called in all the time. One of the DJs took a liking to me in a kind of a big brother sort of way. Went to a couple hockey games, got me a job on the promotions team, knew I was really interested in broadcasting because I had kind of explored this public speaking thing, and I thought I might want to go into radio. So he gave me a guest hour where I came in and I hosted, and I picked all the songs and I hosted with him. His name was Glenn Pelche. He just retired from radio.
And how old? Sorry, Sean, but how old were you at this point?
I was 15 at the time.
Okay, so 15, grade 9, grade 10?
Yeah. Yeah. And that job at Chime, which was in Kitchener, and I lived in Guelph. So I was going in there to, if there was a home show or the COE, the Central Ontario Exhibition, which was like the RC Cola version of the CNE, right?
Yeah.
Would come to the odd. We would be there handing out win stickers or come and spin the wheel. We would be part of the promo crew. So Glenn got me that job, and that led to a job at a radio station in Guelph, which is now Magic 106, used to be called CKLA. And I was an operator, and it was an automated station where you had old school reel-to-reel tapes, and we played big band music. And it was my job to do that and program the commercials for the next day. And I worked there for 3.5 years in high school, and I just wanted to kind of become a sponge and learn if I wanted to do radio or not, because I thought I did. And finally they let me do the weather, right? And I could just record the weather on there, and they went, oh, this kid's got a voice, right? I never actually got a show on there because I ended up going to university at 18. But in my 3.5 years there, I realized that as much as I liked radio and I liked media, there wasn't a heck of a lot of money in it. There wasn't a lot of a future in Southern Ontario unless I wanted to go to a major market and go to a specific radio program. And I decided against it because I was between radio and teaching. So I went to the University of Waterloo in 91 and kind of hit my fork in the road there.
Yes, exactly. So I'm glad that you're at this fork of the road, because that's exactly where I want to continue from here. So now you graduated in 95. You were in that class, right?
Yep.
Okay. So now what I want to talk about is when you, so in 1999 is when you started like the PA announcing. Now to this day, I just want to make sure I have it right. So this is 23 years, 1,400 games in 12 sports, Sean. That's what you covered.
That's just public address. That's just talking on a microphone in a live venue.
Okay, right on. So now, listen, this is the talking point that I'm excited about. I want to talk about when you first started with Rogers TV. Now, I'm a big fan of guys that kind of put themselves out there, guys that are super confident, and then because of that way, they're leaders, right? Now, I was doing my research, Sean, and I'm hearing words like, you're telling Rogers, look, I'm better than your guys. Let me do it. Is that true?
Well, yeah. It's a delicate balance. It wasn't as in your face as that, because I do consider myself a bit of a wordsmith. And when I sat down, I'll back up in a moment to tell the story, but when you sit down to write an email and your intention of the email, if you boil it down into one sentence, is the people you have on air right now are not very good at representing the sport. I would be better at it. Let me come and help. It's a delicate line to find, that to not be insulting. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
To people that you're asking to work with. Do you know what I mean? I'm not asking, don't replace these people. I would just like to come in and work with them, right? And see how I can elevate it. So what happened was I had been doing PA, Sean, for a number of years. I'd done baseball. I'd gone into basketball now. And we were sitting at a basketball game, and there were I was sitting talking to a couple of coaches between a women's game and a men's game, because it was a doubleheader at the University of Waterloo. And we're sitting here talking, and this won't surprise you after we've been talking for 10 minutes, is one of the coaches said to me, Sean, you never shut up. And I was like, okay, sorry, Eric. And he said, no, what I mean is, that's good. You know what you're talking about. We're talking about what just happened in the first game. You should have a microphone, not just the PA microphone that you're doing. You should do the Rogers telecast, because the guys that come in, sometimes they're people that are used to hockey. They aren't as familiar. They might know basketball, but they didn't know the OUA basketball with the international rules and the nuances and maybe the history of what happened between Waterloo and Laurier when they played 4 years ago. When I know that, I have a bit of an encyclopedic knowledge of OUA basketball for about 30 years. Right. So he said, you should contact them. And I'm like, man, maybe. And then the other coach said, yeah, you should contact them. Maybe. So they wrote me a reference letter. And then I just literally went on the internet, 2004, first week of January 2004, and looked up who's the producer of OUA basketball. His name was Chris Schooley, and I sent Chris Schooley an email. And Chris sent me back, and this was on a Wednesday. Chris emailed me back the same day and said, "Want to come out on Saturday and do color commentary for our women's basketball broadcast?" And I said, "Sure." And that was January 10th, 2004. I came out for that game. They said, "We want to keep you on. We want you to be the host. We want you to do interviews." So I was hosting and doing play-by-play. Sometimes I was doing color if we didn't have a color commentator. One time in a snowstorm, I did all three. That was fun. But yeah, I did that. I did OUA basketball and football and any OUA sports for 11, 12 years before they kind of went to individual schools. And that was 18 years ago. I've been on air for 18 years there.
Wow, man. That's incredible. Okay, so now here's a question I have just because I just heard you tell that story. Right? Now, who's your favorite announcer? You've done this for a long time. Sports announcer. Who's your guy that you like the most?
Well, let's talk about the two streams, right? Because you've got broadcasters and you've got PA announcers. If it's PA announcers, it's Dave Schneider, hands down. PA announcer for the Kitchener Rangers, you're going to know that voice for sure. He was your announcer when you were playing here. Dave was actually one of the guys. I mentioned Glenn Pelche when I was getting that job at 570. Dave was another guy. Dave was a mentor to me when I was a teenager. And when I started PA announcing, Dave would come up and see me in the press box at baseball games. And Dave and I maintained a friendship for a number of years. And now we work under the same roof at the Odd, where he's still doing PA, I'm doing TV. And my biggest thrill, Sean, is that in the unlikely event that Dave misses a game, and I think he's missed 3 in the last decade, I'm his fill-in. So I get to do the PA. I get to fill in on the PA for my hero, which I think is the greatest voice in any public address sport. All due respect to professional leagues. If you're going with broadcasting, one and only Ron MacLean for me. Ron MacLean is my guy. I think his intelligence, I think his ability to react on the fly, I think his ability to use words as humor and intelligence is unsurpassed. I realized a few years ago I kind of tried to model myself after that, but unintentionally. It wasn't intentional. And then I realized the similarities, and he's pretty amazing.
So, and thank you for sharing that, buddy. Now, another thing to add to that, Sean, is like, I know that when you started with Rogers and then you were starting with the OHL, that you are such, like, I'm trying to think of the best word to describe it. You want to be so good that you actually like gave a little time like to study the league and the players, and like I was reading about this. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, it's something that I don't advertise a lot, but I'm happy to tell the story to you. Is that I didn't grow up loving hockey, Sean. Like I wasn't the kid that sat around on Saturday night and watched the Leafs game. That was my brother, and I played road hockey with the guys, and I loved Daryl Sittler. And in '93 when we were in university and the Leafs made that run, and that
with Gilmore and Clark,
that Leafs and Blues series, man, those games were unreal. But at the time, like I literally at 20 years old didn't fully understand the offside rule. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And now I'll say a moderately respected hockey broadcaster. I'm trying to interview people here and there. We're doing this podcast, but at the time, 2004 rolled around, and I was asked to do OHL hockey. Like the OUA stuff went well. They asked me to do some Guelph Storm games, and I was nervous, and I said I don't really want to. And then they kept asking me and kept asking me and kept asking me, and I kept saying no. I said no for probably 4 or 5 years because I just didn't know hockey well enough. I don't, and here's where a lot of people want to be on Rogers, and a lot of people want to be on TV, and a lot of people want to be sports broadcasters. And I could have done that, and I could have gone out there and given a bullshit essay, right, and kind of put my way through it. But I didn't want to do that, especially because the way I came to Rogers was to say, I want to be the person that knows what they're doing on the air. And I thought it was hypocritical if I would step into an OHL role. So finally, after a number of years, it was 2009, a producer named Randy Sachs said, Sean, I really want you to do OHL hockey. What will it take? And at that point, my son had started to play hockey. And that's when I started to, that was the impetus for me. I mean, for you, you played, right? I didn't play. You don't want to see me on skates, trust me.
But that's okay though.
Yeah. But when my son started playing, that's where my love of hockey built. So there might be a Rangers game, or there might be a Griffins game, or there might be a Leafs game. But if there's a Pee-wee five-year-old game with Lucas Furfaro playing, that's the most important game on the planet right now. Yes. Right? And that's my Stanley Cup. So that's what made hockey become a love for me. Like, I'm excited right now because we're doing this podcast, but in 90 minutes, I'm going to my stepson's hockey game, and it's house league hockey with a 16-year-old. And this is the highlight of my week, to be able to just go out and see him play hockey. So I wanted to be good at it. And Randy said, what will it take? And I said, give me 2 years. Give me 2 years to study and immerse myself in this league. It's an opportunity for my son and I to go to games. I said, give me till 2011, and I'll make sure I'm ready. And that's what happened.
Wow, man. See, man, I respect that so much, because that's what dedication really is. Time, energy, like that. That's amazing, man. Hats off to you for doing that. So now, at the end of this 2 years, how confident did you feel in the beginning?
Oh, terrible. I didn't feel like I knew anything.
Did you?
Oh yeah. I've been nervous three times. Two times on TV, one time on PA. And the 2 times I've been nervous on TV were that first year.
Okay.
That was it. Like the first game, terrified. And then you might have heard me tell this story. I sent you a video, but I'll tell this story real quickly.
Please.
We did a playoff pregame show. Everything was going well, and the Rangers were playing the Plymouth Whalers, and they're like, "Oh man, there's going to be so many eyes on this game. These teams are stacked. Let's do a playoff half-hour pre-show." I'll go, all right, half an hour. The game starts at 7:30, but 7 to 7:30, we're going to have a pre-show. Sean, you're hosting it. I'm like, what? I'm hosting it, right? And they said, okay, so I'm hosting it, and it was super simple, Sean. It was really like, here's what it was like. Honestly, a child could have done it. It was Sean, you're going to come on, you're going to talk about the Whalers and the Rangers, and then you're going to introduce Gary, who is our play-by-play guy. You and Gary are going to talk, and I'm pretty much just teeing Gary up for his talking points. Then we're going to take a break. Then you're going to come back. You're going to do the same thing with the color commentator. Then you're going to take a break. Then you're going to come back, and you're going to do a double box like this, and you're going to go talk to the host down at ice level, Ryan, and that's it. I'm pretty much a traffic director. I'm a guy with 2, light up flashlight cones. Just here, you say this, you say this. It was made for success. But all I had to do was an intro. All I had to do was bring it in off the top with something. And as a public speaker, you can do it, right? And Randy, to his credit at the time, liked to do what's called run-throughs. So a few minutes before we go on air, he's like, everybody in position. Let's do this like we're going live right now. I want to hear what everybody's saying. So in my brain, my bring-in was something along the lines of, because the Rangers had fallen behind 2-0 in the series, and we're now coming home, and that was very unexpected. Okay, so it was going to be along the lines of, Rangers went into Plymouth, lost both games. They came back here. It's completely unexpected. They're looking to rebound. They've got to have a big night on home ice. Let's break down what we expect to see tonight. See, boom, off the top of my head, that works. What I said in the run-through was the Kitchener Rangers, and I'm not exaggerating. It's going to sound like I'm exaggerating. This is exactly what it sounded like in the run-through. Kitchener Rangers and the Plymouth Whalers are playing a playoff game tonight, and if you would have told me that the Rangers would come back trailing 2-0, I wouldn't have believed you. And then there was this, you see the words coming out of your mouth, like you're like, this is so terrible. I see the commentators off to the right on my peripheral vision just cringing. I'm trying to grab the words back, and there's this long pause, which probably wasn't longer than 5 seconds, but it felt like 3 minutes. And I trailed off and said, I wouldn't have believed you. And then there was this long pause, and Randy goes, yeah, you've got 3 minutes to make that better, Sean. That was it, because we weren't live yet. And what happened? I freaked out a little bit. The red light went on, and I nailed the intro. But I was so nervous until the red light went on.
Man, but that, I mean, and thanks for sharing that. I'm loving it, Sean, because I know a lot of people have no idea like what goes behind the production. So just hearing this kind of insight, like that's exactly what I'm trying to get across here, man. So this is great. So
well, before we go on, keep your sorry.
Yes,
but
please.
Just let me tell you the difference about behind the scenes. So if you would have watched the Kitchener Rangers telecast last night against the Sarnia Sting, another one of your old teams, I think, right? So they were playing last night.
Pretty much half the league.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry,
you worked
buddy.
your way around
Go
there.
ahead.
I think 6. You got an even half dozen. So we're bringing the game in last night, and I'm about to go on live. We're a minute live. I literally don't have any idea what I'm about to say. None. I just know I'm going to talk about what they've done, and I'm going to talk about what they've done, and I'm going to talk about that they outscored them 25. But I'm not memorizing numbers. I'm just speaking from the heart. That night in the Plymouth series, when I couldn't talk, I had all my bullet point notes taped under the lens. So the lens is right here looking at me, and I have everything under there so I can see it while I'm looking at the camera. I don't do that anymore. The camera goes on and I trust myself. 99% of the time it works. When it doesn't, we have a story.
Wow. So now I want, Sean, I want the listeners to also understand, like, because we're focusing right now kind of on the Kitchener Rangers and the OHL. Now, the Kitchener Rangers, one of the most storied teams in the league, right? The arena has so much history. We were talking before the recording about how when I played there, it was right before the renovation.
That's the arena right there.
Oh, you got it right there. Yep. Another reason for people to tune into the YouTube channel is we got a really nice pic of the odd. Yep. Now, what's the proper official name of the Kitchener Rangers Arena? Is it just the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium?
Memorial Auditorium, the odd for short, but technically the rink itself is the Dom Cardillo Arena because there's 3 arenas in there.
Okay. Right on, man. Right on. And as we were talking, before the recording, Sean, like, I had a very short stay in Kitchener. I played a half season there. The cool thing about it is that pretty much I got drafted to the NHL from being on the Kitchener Rangers, because that was the last team I played for. And I ended up getting traded after the draft to Mississauga, right? To Don Cherry. And man, Kitchener just had such a big mark on me. And like, what I'm trying to get into here is being the guy for the Kitchener Rangers for so long now. What has that organization done for you? Like, it really did a lot for me, man. Yours is ongoing. Can you explain that kind of stuff?
It's a ton of visibility for sure, but I do a lot of other things, right? Like I left an office job. Like I was doing all my announcing on the side, and then all these little things I was doing, wait a minute, let me do the math here. 8 different contracts to talk into a microphone. I can do this full time and not work during the day. And that's what I did 6 years ago. So that's great. Like the exposure is great. And being able to say I'm the host of the Kitchener Rangers games on Rogers TV is fantastic. It's led to some work directly with the team, which is awesome. I did their draft coverage this past year, which was a lot of fun. I have a really great relationship with the office, and I think it's really fantastic. You talked about your time here. Did you know I have one of your teammates here? Look at this.
No.
Look at this.
Who
I got Derek Roy right here.
Derek Roy.
I got a Derek Roy bobblehead right here.
Man, he was so good for Kitchener.
Also, I know that this logo is what we see now, but I think, isn't this the logo that you played under?
Yes.
I got this for you. The old text.
That is there. So cool, Sean.
That mustache. Sorry if you're just listening and not watching, but that is a nice retro Rangers shirt.
Yeah, Sean has the logo that was back in the early 2000s, and
Yeah,
that's pretty impressive, man. You're
yeah,
Mr. Kitchener Ranger right now.
yeah.
And I do want to get into to the other things that you do as well, buddy, because I find it phenomenal. But just sticking with Kitchener right now, the people that you've met, the players that you've seen develop from
Yeah.
a shy rookie to a guy that's just a step away from stepping into an NHL lineup, like that stuff must be just off the hook incredible, man.
So the very first game I did was in March of 2011, and my interview that day was an 18-year-old kid named Gabriel Landeskog.
Oh,
He's
wow.
gone on to do some good things, right? So when you have players come through like Gabriel Landeskog and Jeff Skinner scoring 50 goals, Tobias Reeder had a great career, who was there. We had John Gibson. John Gibson was the goalie in Kitchener. Even just recently, some guys have made their NHL debut. Riley Damiani worked his butt off and was the AHL Rookie of the Year last year. Got called up in December. I was in Mexico with our family, and we found out that Riley had got his call up from the taxi squad. Gets in his first game, gets the rookie lap, scores in his first game. You can't write the story any better than that. So it's great to see. You meet these kids as a 16-year-old kid, and Sean, my position, the odd. I'm down between the benches in non-COVID times. You
Yeah.
get to know all the players. You build up a level of trust with the players, right? You get to know their inner workings. And I'm not going to be the talking head that you see on TV that asks, I don't want to hear pucks in deep. I don't want to hear, your standard answers. I want to get a little more out of you. We had a player named Michael Vukojevic, who is now playing in the Utica Comets, NHL drafted defenseman with the New Jersey Devils. And I period interview one night, and he came out for his interview, and the team was losing 7-0. Normally, the player would come out. We have 90 seconds before we go live again. We're in a commercial. I give them a quick little rundown of what we're going to talk about, the thread of questioning, and then we go live. I get him back in the room. Mike comes out. He's in a terrible mood. They're losing 7-0. And he goes and sits in the stick room off to the side, where Dan Liebold is over there. And he goes, just tell me when we're 15 seconds from air. And I walked in the room, and I was probably a little out of line. But I walked in the room, and he was sitting there sulking. And I looked at him, and I said, hey, you're an NHL drafted defenseman. You're going to have a lot of games where you're in a terrible mood and you're losing, and you still need to do an interview. This is going to be good practice for you. Come out there. Don't tell me you're getting pucks in deep and finishing your checks, and give me a good interview, all right? And I walked out. And I wouldn't say that to a kid that I didn't have a level of trust with, right? I wouldn't say that to a 17-year-old that didn't trust me. And he came out. We had a great interview, and he came up after the game. He said, thanks. They lost 7-2. It's a great team. Who cares? But he said, I needed that. I needed that kick in the ass to be able to do that interview. And now you watch him. He does great stuff. He does great interviews. He's so comfortable on the mic, but he wasn't then.
Well, yeah, dude. I mean, right before you said that, Sean, I was going to say that's exactly what athletes need, man. They need that confidence. We thrive off that confidence. If we get a pep talk from the TV guy, we're having the best interview of our lives, man.
Well,
that's golden.
What does anybody want, Sean? You just want somebody to believe in you, right? And don't come out and tell me you're going to give me a bad interview. I believe you're going to give me a good interview, and here's why.
I love it, man. I love it. Okay, so this is perfect. So now, just before we leave Kitchener, I want to talk about like the team mentality with the TV people, the people that are hosting the games, people like Patrice Whiffen, for example, who we're both very good friends with.
Yep.
What is the dynamics between, because you guys are all kind of doing different things, but I know you guys have to work together in some kind of capacity, right?
Yeah, Patrice and I are on different streams. She works for the team themselves, and she's the in-game host, and then I'm the TV broadcast. But we're always crossing paths all the time. And if I need something from the team, I message Patrice. If Patrice needs something from TV, she'll message me or our producer Adam, and it's that reciprocal relationship, whether it's with TV and radio, whether it's with TV and the team, we just try. One of the big things I always say, Sean, is, you got to learn everybody's name. Know your volunteers. Know who's on camera. Know the name of the guy that rides a Zamboni when you walk in, right? Know the name of the ushers, right? I have a routine every single game. I come from the media room. I'll talk to Wendy at the media room, and then I'll come downstairs and I'll work my way down section 7, and I'll come out and I'll talk to Max, the German usher. And Max and I will always predict the score of the game. And then we'll go downstairs. I'll give myself a little tap on the wall, thank the arena for letting me giving me the opportunity to work in there. And then we'll go down there and I'll see Don, the usher that works downstairs. And then we'll check in with the trainers, and then we'll check in with the equipment managers. And that's all part of game day prep for me. That's human relationships. Because when you're all working in such close proximity, yeah, I've worked with people before that I've sat at a desk with that I say, hey, what's that camera person's name? And they say, I don't know. I don't learn the volunteer's name. Not me. I know everybody that works on every telecast, because we don't do anything if it isn't for them. So independent on TV, right? That's great. But also you got to know everything for radio. You got to know Patrice and Alex and Cole. Like the Rangers released these funny Valentines, and we put them on our TV broadcast last night. But that's great. I can put a funny graphic up there, but I'm going to mention that Alex Witherspoon and Cole Dow made those because they do great work.
Wow. But you're displaying all the qualities of a leader, Sean. That's what you're talking about. Those are leadership qualities. And I appreciate that you're like that, man. That is so professional. That's incredible. Like we have a pretty big base from Ontario, right? So people, you're hearing this. You're hearing this teamwork and this passion that goes behind these Kitchener Ranger games, straight from the top right to the bottom. Like this is teamwork. People got to check this out, man. I think the Kitchener, like the crowds. Yeah, that's another question I have for you. How cool is that going to be after March 1st? Having all the crowd in the odd, man. It's been a long time since that odd has been full.
For sure. Well, first and foremost, I just want to say thank you. I appreciate those kind words. I really appreciate you saying that, Sean. That was really nice to hear. Thank you. And yeah, I can't wait for fans to be back, because the fans are the fuel in that arena. Oh. If 7,000 people are quiet, you can hear a pin drop in there. But the second somebody lays a big hit, or the second there's a big goal and the Rangers horn goes, it's great. The first game with nobody there was Erie, and we were actually playing the Erie Otters, which I'm not trying to have wordplay. But they were piping in crowd noise, and it was weird. And, somebody had a hit or somebody had a goal, and there just wasn't any noise. It was weird. So I asked Mike McKenzie last night in our post-game interview, and he says, yeah, the guys are really pumped to have fans back, because the next home game, they'll be at 50% capacity. And technically, that's just under 4,000 people there. So
that's awesome, buddy. Okay, so now this is another exciting thing that I'd like to talk about, because Sean, what I've realized, buddy, especially since I've started my show, is that in sports, there's a lot of different components of sports. Like the players are just one component. A lot of people think that sports is just all about playing, and it's not. There's the coaching, there's the training, there's the strength people, there's the TV, there's the radio, there's so much to it, right? There's so many guys that are such good sports guys that want to do what I want to do, that want to do what you've been doing for a long time. They want to get involved in that. What I was very, very motivated to see is the fact that you are keeping this pretty much in the family. I want to talk about Lucas right now. Oh. I want to talk about Lucas. Now,
I would love to.
Lucas, TV broadcasting program at Conestoga College, which is in London, correct?
In Kitchener.
It's in Kitchener.
Yeah.
Even better. Okay. But what I'm very, very impressed with is this contract with the University of Waterloo for announcing. I need you to explain this to me. Me and the listeners need to know about this.
You couldn't write this story any better, Sean. So in my PA work, I'm the voice of the Guelph Griffins, and I have been since 2008. Prior to that, I was the voice of the Waterloo Warriors in the OUA from 99 until 2008. So I learned my craft at Waterloo, and then I went to Guelph. So my son Lucas was born in 2001. And one of the great things about all the stuff I did was that Lucas could come and volunteer when I was working a game when he was 10 years old. He could be the ball boy or he could be the water boy. As he got older, he was a mascot. And then when he was 16, actually on the Kitchener Rangers telecasts, he was my cameraman for 3 years.
No way.
I originally said no to full-time hosting in 2016, and I said, I don't want to lose time with my son because we go to the games, and they said, we'll teach him to be your cameraman. And we were like, sold. So Lucas and I watch every game together between the benches. He had learned some great skills, but he was volunteering at a game. Or no, he was actually getting paid. He was 15 years old, and he was working at a University of Guelph basketball game. And the hockey announcer didn't show up. And we're like, we don't have a hockey announcer. Sean's doing basketball. Who's going to do the game? And Lucas, who was literally sweeping the floor after warm-up, said, I can do it. And everyone looked at him, and he was 15 years old. And he said, yeah, I've seen Dad do enough hockey games. I can do a hockey game. So off he went across, announced the hockey game, did the PA for the hockey game, and then became my backup PA announcer for 5 years. Now, flash forward a couple years, I go back and help out at the University of Waterloo from time to time when they're in a pinch and the regular announcers can't do it. I go home and help them out. And I was there doing football this year, and Lucas was DJing beside me. He was doing all the music, and he had filled in there announcing as well. And Dan Ackerman, who does the hiring there, didn't ask me, didn't tell me, didn't give me a hint about anything, but right in front of me says, Lucas, we're looking for a basketball announcer and a women's hockey announcer. Would you be interested in it? And Lucas looked at me, and I was just like, is this really happening? And I said, don't ask me. It's up to you. I'll make sure you have a car. You can get there. And he said, I'll look at the schedule. And the next day, we made the schedule work. And he said, yeah, I'd love to. So Lucas is the voice of the Warriors now for basketball and women's hockey. And here's the amazing thing, Sean. I learned there and went to Guelph. He learned at Guelph and then went back home to Waterloo, where I started. Now I have photos of when I would be announcing basketball games there, and 2-year-old Lucas is playing with a mini ball on the court with one of the former players' sons. So I announced for a player named Mano Watsa. Mano's son Isaac and Lucas were playing when they were 2-3 years old. Now Isaac plays for the Warriors basketball team, and Lucas is his announcer. So those kids that played on the court 17 years ago are working together on the court now. It's incredible.
And do you have footage or pictures of that?
I have some pictures. I'll send them to you.
No. Please. But like, what I mean is, like, how cool of a little docu-series would that be?
Yeah, I actually for his first game, I often regretted not having anything for my very first game. So for his first game as voice of the Warriors, I got a photo of him at the table, and I got the box score from the game, printed box score. And for Christmas, it was 2 8x10s. The photo of him, the box score beside it in black and gold with a plaque in the bottom that says Lucas Furfaro, voice of the Warriors, game number 1, and the date. So maybe one day he'll be doing a podcast like this, Sean. Maybe he'll be talking to you, with hundreds of thousands of viewers watching this as he hits game number 500 or something, and we can talk about game number 1, right?
Yeah, dude, that's so cool. That's so cool. I read about your son, and I was just like, dude, we got to talk about this young man. Like, it's like, I find it, a person needs to be so brave. They need to be brave and confident and just believe in themselves. And like at such a young age, you did such a good job.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate that. And you want to talk about confidence. I don't know that I've ever been prouder than that moment out of the blue, unexpected to me, when he said, I can announce a hockey game.
Yeah.
Like, right? You want to talk about proud dad moment right there.
Wow. Yeah.
And then now he's like you said, he's gone into TV broadcasting at Conestoga College, and he's in his second year there. And it was funny because it was online during COVID when he started. And on his very first day of his very first class, I was watching him. I took a photo of him. And then 30 seconds into the class, I said to him, just so you know, you now technically have more education in television broadcast than I ever had. because I just made it work on my own, and now you have more education than me in it.
Wow. But that's got to be proud for a dad moment as well.
For sure. I mean, Lucas was a kid in high school that didn't love school, didn't really want to put in the time to do history and English. But like anyone, you just got to find your thing. And he found his thing, and he's excelling at it right now. And he's taking a lot of it, and there's pride of ownership. There's an opportunity for him to go to Disney with his mom, and he turned it down because he had announcing commitments and schoolwork that he needed to do. And there was just yesterday, or just 2 days ago, we had a conversation where they're taking a trip on March break and they want to leave on March 12th. And Lucas said, I can't leave March 12th. I have basketball. It's senior night. I need to be there. I need to be there to do the script for the seniors. We can leave the next morning. I'm like, you want to? Yeah, Dad's pretty proud.
Yeah, dude. So now here's a question for you. Did Lucas kind of realize it in the same kind of ways that you did as a kid, or is it completely different for him? Like for you, what was that diarrhea phrase again?
Verbal diarrhea.
Was that the case for Lucas in school, or was it completely different?
Completely different. Lucas is a bit more of an introvert. I mean, not necessarily with his friends, but he wasn't. We had completely different, divergent paths that have come back together.
That's unreal. I'm loving it, man. Just because, Sean, I'm telling you, like I went to school, grew up with so many guys that are just into sports just as much as me. They just don't want to do the playing thing. They don't want to be the athlete. They want to be in the media. They want to be in something else to do with the sport. And there's so many things to do. And then just hearing a success story like your son, Lucas, I mean, that's got to be inspiring for those that are listening that do want to be involved. But they think, oh, well, I got to play if I want to be a sports guy. No, you don't. You don't have to play.
No.
You don't have to play. You have to love it. You have to have a passion for it.
Lucas is a great hockey announcer, and Lucas played 10 years of riveting house league hockey and 2 years of select hockey with no body checking. But
he loved it though, right?
He was a good hockey player, but like I said, that's his Stanley Cup. And that was great. And it was there's nothing like it. And we'll be doing some Waterloo Wolves hockey tonight with Declan, so it'll be awesome.
Yes, dude. And Sean, the one thing that I love about this show is obviously the networking that I get to do, the people that I get to meet, people that I admire, like yourself. Like now I feel like I've known you forever, right? But what the point that I'm getting to is that I'm gonna be making some rounds. I'm gonna be making rounds to London. I'm gonna be making rounds to Kitchener, and I can't wait to see you live, man, because I'm coming. It's gonna be very soon, and I'm really looking forward to that, man.
Well, I will tell you this: if you are here during hockey season, you can bank on coming on an intermission with me, and we're gonna promote your podcast and have a little fun. If you are here outside of hockey season, we'll record something and make sure we run it during the intermission upon the start of the next season. But we will definitely have to meet up when you are here for sure.
Dude, I really appreciate that. The biggest thing for me would just be doing it with you, of course, right? So that's what's exciting. So now, Sean, here's the thing, buddy. Now, you're a pretty interesting dude, right? You're doing public address announcer, on-air television personality, freelance host, emceeing. There's a lot of stuff that you do, buddy. You wear a lot of hats. I'm going to have to bring you back for a part 2, man. I'm going to have to put you on the spot and ask you that as well.
I'm in. I'm in.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it because there is a lot more that I'd like to talk to you. You're a very interesting guy. There's people are dying to know what's behind the scenes with this type of stuff. So the insight that you provided today, buddy, it's so priceless. I'm loving the family story. I'm loving everything that you had to say today, my man.
That's awesome. Thanks, Sean. I appreciate it. I got a trivia question for you, though, eh?
Let's go. Let's do it, buddy.
Did you know that 2 current members of the Kitchener Rangers coaching staff are former teammates of yours?
Is one of them a hometown guy?
One of them is a hometown guy.
Is that Jimmy Gagnon?
No. Brandon Murley, you played with in Kitchener.
Yeah, he was an overager. Yep.
and Dennis Weidman, who you played with in London.
Wides is on the coaching staff?
Wides, yeah. Dennis Weidman and Brandon Murley are Mike McKenzie's assistant coaches.
Wow. So, hey,
And
man.
they were on the coaching staff with Jay McKee, and Jay was on the Sabres when you were up with the Sabres. I know he wasn't in that game against Toronto, but he was a member of that team that season.
Oh, yes. No, he was a big-time veteran on that season. So, yeah, no, Jay McKee, but I would, whenever he was in the same dressing room or anywhere near me, man, I'd be so observant of that guy. That guy was like a super vet, man.
You're going to be a trivia answer in one of my telecasts. Who's the piece that ties all the coaches and former coaches together?
I love it, man. So it looks like it's going to be quite the party in Kitchener, my man.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to it, buddy. No, and you know what? Like I want to thank you again for coming on again, bro. Like it was a little bit of a short notice, so I want the listeners to know how good of a guy you are, all around, such a professional. And you know we're gonna end it here. I want to thank our listeners for tuning in to another episode of The Sheriff. And I want to thank Sean for coming on again. Sean, you said you're coming soon, and I hope that that's true, my dude.
You know I'm going to come back with somebody who spells the name Sean correctly anytime.
That's it, bro. SCAN for the listeners that are wondering what we're talking about. All right, guys, so we're going to sign out here. Woo!